All right, so we got through some technical difficulties. We hope on this episode here there's no echo, and I think this is gonna be a lot of fun. We're looking at this game against Arizona State after the exhibition with Lincoln. I think at this point we don't we certainly don't know everything. We still know very little, but we know something, and I think that's an important place to start because this is going to be a much more challenging test, and I think maybe most importantly, this is going to be Bobby Hurley's first time back in Cameron, and I think that might be an appropriate place to start as we look ahead to the Duke versus Arizona State matchup, which is going to be this Sunday, October 27th at 7 p.m. JD, not Saturday at 2 o'clock. I don't know where you got that from. But I'll let you go here. I'm sure you've got a lot of good information on Mr. Hurley.
I do. And the first thing I'm going to do is correct you. It's not Arizona State. It's not the Wildcats. We're playing ASU, who is Arizona State University, the Sun Devils.
Didn't I say that?
Nope, said Arizona State. Our fans would be very confused by
it. It
that.
is Arizona State.
But this is... No, it's ASU. Arizona State University.
Oh, okay.
The Sun Devils.
I know it's the Sun Devils.
Arizona's... But... Right, Arizona State is, I think, the Wildcats or something.
No, that's Arizona. All right, move on.
I think we should go another 20 minutes because this is exactly what people want to listen to us argue. All right. For Duke haters and for Duke fans, as you mentioned, it's the return of Bobby Hurley. Probably one of the most hated, right up there with Christian Laettner, and absolutely one of my most favorite Duke players returns as coach. And this is as good as it gets because not only is he returning, but if you can look at the genealogy of all the Hurleys, he's coaching his son. And his son has scored all of 3 points. This is his senior year. And he has 7 rebounds in his entire career. But then you got Bobby Hurley coaching his son, Bobby Hurley, and his brother, Danny, is the coach of UConn, and their father is still coaching high school ball in New Jersey? Or did he finally retire?
I don't think so. I'm not 100% certain. But I think it's funny you went with Bobby Hurley's son because when I was looking at the roster, I had a similar thought, and I was like, I wonder what goes on, at Thanksgiving, right? Like, at this Thanksgiving, I bet Dan Hurley's son, I think it's Andrew, is there like, hey, I got 2 rings. What do you got? We both play a similar amount of minutes for our dads, but I got 2 rings. And I haven't seen, you have 1 NCAA tournament appearance, but, look at me. I'm a big winner over here. So it's funny that you went there as well.
Well, and do you imagine that with all the Hurleys, do they go, like have Thanksgiving together, or that they're like reminiscing about how many championships Pop has over at the high school in St. Anthony's? Or
yeah, you got that right.
Okay. So in any case, what's really exciting about ASU is also that they're part of the Big 12. Now, if you want to look at who they're going to go up against in their regular season, they got number 1, Kansas. They got number 4, Houston. Number 5, Iowa State. Number 8, Baylor. Number 10, Arizona. That's why I was trying to make the difference there. And number 20 beats the heck out of me what Cincinnati is doing. But yes, maybe they were always part of the Big 12, but they're in it too. So talk about their regular season matchups. I hope Bobby Hurley's got them ready. So why don't you tell us a bit about who's on their team?
Yeah, and I think, like you said, being in the Big 12, the end of the Pac-12. So I think that's an important place. So I'm glad you went there. And I also think, the Big 12 being as good as they are and the SEC being as good as they've been the past couple of years is part of the reason why the ACC doesn't get as much credit as they have the past, I don't know, the past handful of years, right? You don't get as much credit for your conference wins in the ACC. So I just went on a little bit of a tangent, but I think you mentioning the strength of the Big 12 is really important for college basketball this year. So Arizona State, looking at the roster, they've got, I would say, like 3 rotation players back. When you look at Adam Miller, who averaged 12 points and 3 rebounds last year, is a 6'3 guard who started his career in the Big Ten with Illinois. Jemiah Neal, who averaged 11 points, 5 rebounds per game, 6'6 forward. And then Sean Phillips, who's a 7-footer, played about 14 minutes a game, but is good to have on the roster because that will give Malawak, a look against someone about his size, which I think is important to note. But really, this Arizona State team wasn't a good year last year for Coach Hurley. They were 14-18, 8-12 in the Pac-12, and they went out and reloaded. 2 years ago, they had made the NCAA tournament. They had a guy, which I'm sure a lot of Duke fans know of, DJ Horn, who was a big part of the NC State team, one of the 2 DJs. And he left the program, and clearly he had a big impact on NC State, and it was a big loss for them last year. So they brought in 4 transfers. BJ Freeman from Milwaukee, who was the Horizon League leading scorer. He averaged over 20 points a game as a 6'6 wing. Austin Mason, 6'2 guard from Missouri State, started his career at Oklahoma, averaged 17 points a game. And Bashir Jihad, a 6'9 forward from Ball State, averaged 18 and 8. And then also, this was interesting. I don't know if you caught this, JD. Austin Nunez, who started his career at Arizona State, went to Ole Miss for a season, played less than he did at Arizona State, and was like, yeah, I'll come back. I'll come back to play for Coach Hurley.
I did not catch that, but nothing like the transfer portal.
Nothing like it, right? I completely agree. And then those guys are super important players, especially the first 3, I would say. But I think where it got really interesting for Coach Hurley is he brought in 3 freshmen, part of the top 100. And the first of which was originally a Kentucky commit. And after Calipari left, we'll say it was mutual. I don't think it really was. But after he left Kentucky and went to Arkansas, a few of those guys came with him. But this player, Mr. Jaden Quaintance, I may have butchered. Yeah,
no, Jaden Quaintance. This is the man.
Yeah,
this is the man.
And I don't know if you knew this fun fact, but he is the only other 17-year-old in college basketball besides Cooper Flagg, and he's younger than Cooper. So much so that he will be, unless they change the rule, ineligible for the 2025 NBA draft, is my understanding. And he's a top 10 recruit. He's a forward. He might be 17, but he doesn't look like he's 17. He is a strong kid, and he's going to be a lot of fun to watch in this matchup, along with Jason Sanin, I believe. Jason Sanin. Another name I clearly needed to practice before we started this video. He's a 6'5 wing ranked in the top 25. So right there. And then Amir Ali is the last significant recruit. 6'8 forward ranked in the top 100. But the first 2, certainly based off the rankings, are just as talented as the Duke freshmen that were brought in this year. And I think those are going to be the guys that I'm most intrigued by, along with the transfers like Freeman and Mason, to watch on this Arizona State side.
So let's go back to Jaden for a second. How did he slip through the cracks of both Duke and UNC? He played his high school ball in North Carolina, and he is the highest recruit that Bobby Hurley ever got and somehow he got him out of North Carolina to come to ASU. And I bet both coaches at UNC, Duke, NC State, Wake Forest, actually all of them, go, wait, what about us? How come he didn't go? He, Jack, this is absolutely not going to be Lincoln. We're going to have a chance to actually see whether Duke has. So I think this was really good scheduling on the part of Coach Shire, and the idea that they're going to bring Bobby Hurley back, and uh, it's also a benefit game for the Duke Children's Hospital, which makes it special, and everyone's really happy about it. So I'm really looking forward to this.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a lot of fun. As you said, good scheduling. I'm glad that it has like there's like three benefits, if you will, from the game. As you mentioned, they're playing for charity. You get Bobby Hurley. I can't believe it's his first time back in Cameron that they never scheduled something. Because
And
even
you wait, and the best part of Bobby Hurley for me is to slap the floor on defense. I used to do it for years. Dozens of people would do it for years. And that's also why thousands of people hate Duke, because he would come back on defense and he would slap the floor to get everyone psyched. I always thought it was one of the great psych moves. Everyone got into defense, but
I, on a side note, I think the last time I remember Duke doing that was in the Zion year. I could be misremembering that, but I feel like it's been a little while since they've done that as a team. But lastly, the third benefit to the game, as you alluded to, is that they'll play a team that is like a really. I think they're going to be a really good like fringe NCAA tournament team this year, and I think that's important because their first two games of the year are Maine and Army, but then they have a pretty tough non-conference slate. With Kentucky, Kansas, they play at Arizona. And so they've got some tough early. They have a home game with Auburn. Like there's some tough early non-conference games, and so I think it's important to raise the level of competition, and see what the team has to offer. See what you get from certain lineups and what works and what doesn't in a game that, yes, like if Duke were to lose this game, all of the people would be talking about that's it. They're not as good as all the hype is and everything. But I really believe this is you can't lose in this game. No matter what, you're going to learn about your team and be able to move forward. And by the way, I don't think they're losing this game. But just in the case that they were to, like our Knicks, this game doesn't matter at least, right? So it's a great opportunity to see what you got and move forward and make adjustments.
so I want to just, because I always like to dig into Duke history. So, okay. So I'm going to see if you can follow me on this. So Bobby Hurley played 5 years in the NBA. And he was driving home from a home game when he was playing for,
Sacramento?
I think, Sacramento. Yep. And a car T-boned him. And he was seriously in life-threatening injuries. And he went on in his NBA career to average 3.8 points per game. He only played 5 years, 1.1 rebounds, 3.3 assists per game. But it was a short NBA career. All right, Jack. What other Duke favorite guard also had a career-ending accident when he was driving home?
Well, I will take it a step further, and I'm trying to look it up to make sure I'm right here. But I know the answer to the question is Mr. J. Williams.
They will. You got it.
Or, right, at Duke, I think he was still Jason. But the step further that I think I'm right about is that both Mr. Hurley and Jay Williams were on motorcycles at the time, which I am looking to see.
Wait.
Nope,
I'm
nope,
gonna
I'm
jump
wrong.
in.
I'm wrong.
No,
I
you're
am
wrong.
wrong. All right, I take it back. I
Jay
take
Will
it
was
back.
definitely on a motorcycle,
Yes.
and because he was when Hurley was hurt, the car behind him was a teammate who stopped and got him. But it was almost a life, uh, one of those life threatening accidents, and it's just a little bit of Duke folklore that I try to bring to the broadcast. I'm not certain how many of our listeners really want to know how many Duke players were in career-ending injuries, but sometimes, and we're going to do some more of this later on in the show, later on in not this show, but in our podcast, in trying to look at how Duke players went on to perform in the NBA. And I know that our Knicks got off to a rocky start last night, but you said it was at the hands of a Duke player for the Celtics, and he put on quite a performance.
Yeah. I mean, Jason Tatum was unbelievable. Like, it looked like he was taking out all of his frustrations from the summer, from not being named Finals MVP, which I know it was certainly a little bit of a toss up with him and Jaylen Brown, but we're biased. We thought, at least I thought, should have been Tatum. And he had like 7 threes, he had 10 assists. Like, he was just everywhere. Um, and I, I think whatever. This is not about the NBA. This is about Duke. So with that, I think I'll try to get us back on track here, and I'll look at the Duke side of things as we head into this matchup with Arizona State. And there's a couple of things I was watching the post game, like press conference with Coach Shire. They did some interviews of certain players, and there's a couple of things that I noted, and I wanted to see if you caught on to them, JD, or if these are new to you, and if they are, like, what are your reactions? So the first one is Coach Shire. They asked him about the starting lineup, which we both touched on in the reaction video as a little bit unexpected. And
Totally.
they said, is this going to be what the lineup is going to be moving forward? And Coach Shire, which was notable compared to an answer I'm going to talk about in a little bit here, was pretty definitive in saying that don't read too much into the starting lineup. They're going to change it a few more times. He's still trying things out. And what that says to me is Tyrese Proctor is going to start this game with Arizona State. That's my guess. But
Which
I
is
think,
what we thought.
right. And I think, we're on opposite sides here. You're on the Proctor side, I'm on the Foster side, but we're all on the Duke side. And I thought Foster played better than Proctor in the countdown scrimmage, and I thought Proctor played better than Foster in the exhibition with Lincoln. So I think Proctor's going to get the start in this game with Arizona State. It doesn't mean Foster can't start as well, but I think they're going to try to stagger them so they always have one guy on the court at most times, is my guess from Coach Shire's statement there.
Well, you've pointed out that between the two of them, they're both 6'5", and they're going to have to show that they can control this team that has unlimited. I mean, boy, were we excited about the exhibition because K2 and Cooper. I mean, having them on the wings, we have got to have a point guard that knows how to find them where they want to be.
100%. Next thing from Coach Shire, this is what I was alluding to before in terms of him being definitive or not so definitive. And you're going to love this. They asked him about Pat and Gangba, and they said, what's the timetable for Gangba's return? He said, I'll paraphrase, but he said basically, Pat has started jumping. He's running a little bit. But I don't want to put a timetable on his return. It's not fair to him. And so he could be back for this exhibition. He could be back in January. He could miss the season. We don't know. So I just thought it was pretty.
It is.
He's classic Duke basketball. Coach Shires, he's taken the reins from Coach K, and he does not give out any injury information.
Oh, it's unbelievable. It's worse than the Kremlin. It's just incredible that you cannot get a definitive answer as a fan. Maybe there's other people. I've had the experience of being at Duke and being with the Duke trainer who is just fabulous. But, and when I was there, I tried to ask him questions about various Duke players. He wouldn't even tell me there, what the nature of their injury was, 20 years ago. It's like, you don't get this information.
And I got two more. Speaking of trainer Jose, I don't know if you caught this in the the exhibition with Lincoln. Mr. Malawak had a glove on his left hand.
Yes! What was that about?
He may have what's the correct medical term? Like a slight fracture? Something like that? In his left hand, which is why he had on that glove. And thankfully it's the left hand. Otherwise, I think he could be out for a little bit. But that is something to monitor in this game and moving forward.
Now, we both reacted with pleasant surprise when we saw him shooting the 2 free throws. But the glove is on the left hand, and he shot them right-handed. And they were spectacular. We had no idea what kind of free throw shooter he was. Let's hope that continues if the glove is on the other hand. But yes, the trainer, Jose, is capable of coming up with anything. I had tweaked my Achilles, and he said, just listen to me. I will get you back in the court so you can run for your 8 minutes a game that you're playing in the Coach K Academy. But he is just fat. It was just such an amazing thing to be there for the Coach K Academy. And I thought, and I think I told you that as much fun as meeting all the Duke players were, it was Jose, the trainer, with all of his years of history and all of his phenomenal skills. It's a part of the game that we truly don't give enough credit to, which is how they get each player ready to get on the court, and the time that is spent stretching, the time that is spent with the trainer, the time that is spent discussing what they're going to do to avoid injury and strength training and all of that. And I think that Duke does, having seen the facilities up close, they're really quite spectacular, but the training staff is amazing.
Yeah, and to that point, before I get to my final point here, is that they released a video of Coach K speaking to the team. And in the 15 minutes or so video that they released, that was one of the big points that Coach K was making was, make sure you see Jose. What do you have to do before the game? What do you have to do after the game? Listen to what he says. So clearly it was an emphasis for Coach K, and obviously Shire has continued that. But it is a priority for the program. And lastly, I was going through the plays because I was making some videos here for the Duke players and doing like the all plays, so you can get a sense of not just the good, but also the bad, and just in chronological order. I'm going to be trying to upload those videos to the channel so you just see how each individual player is doing, raw, right? So I'm not trying to filter it for you guys, so you just get their uncut plays. And the thing that was interesting to me, what I caught was, you remember the Con Canoopal dunk, which was
Yeah.
which was a nice rebound and pass by the big fella, Mr. Malawak. The most the thing that I didn't realize at the time was the lineup, which I thought looking back on and just maybe I didn't like sink in real time, but maybe later on it kind of hit me. The lineup they had on the court I think was like kind of awesome. It was Proctor, Knuppel, Mason Gillis, Flag, and Malawak. And I think that lineup is just brings me back to our conversation after the Lincoln game, which was those three freshmen, Flag, Knuppel, Malawak, right? I think those are our pillars, and it's about figuring out who are the two other players to surround them with. And I thought this was a lineup that certainly works. Like Gillis, he gives you the spacing. He's just an awesome 3-point shooter, but he can also defend and rebound. And I think he also is 6'6" and like 230. So you still have great size in your. It's not starting lineup. Maybe it could be, but in that lineup in particular, and I think it just goes to show that Coach Shire has a lot of different lineups and versatility that he can go to with this team, and a lot of them could be awesome. And it's just about figuring out which ones does he like the most, which ones are the most effective.
I think that's a great place to leave it, which is the anticipation of how Coach Shire is going to juggle the amazing group of assets that he has. However, there's one thing that I am looking forward to that you haven't brought up, and that is in the last minute of the game, it will be the matchup between Hubbard and Hurley. And the fans will go crazy. And I think his father will give him a minute or two to play on the court. And hopefully Hubbard will get a minute or two at the end. And that is the matchup of the final minute as opposed to the other 39.
I agree. That's a great place to leave it. We will see you guys after the game. Immediately after, we'll be reacting. So that'll be around a little after 9 Eastern time on Sunday. And if you're new to the channel, subscribe. We'll be covering all things Duke all year long. And then I'll even mix in a little NBA draft stuff, maybe some other teams. We'll see. And like this video, it helps us grow. Comment. Let me know. We want to know what you guys are thinking so we can improve and be better. And also, it's just fun. And share it with a friend. I think that's everything. We'll see you guys next time.